Hey there! Today we're going to master one of the most powerful and common verbs in English, to have. Seriously, it's the key to talking about everything from the car you drive to the family you love. By the end of this, you'll be using it like a pro.
So, here's our game plan. First, we'll get down to the basic meaning. Then, we'll learn how to build positive and negative sentences, figure out how to ask questions, and finally, we'll put it all to the test to make sure it sticks. You ready? Let's do this. Okay, first things first, possession. At its heart, to have is all about what belongs to you, so let's make sure we've got this foundation locked in solid. So yeah, at its core, to have is about what you possess. For any Spanish speakers out there, just think of it like tener. Now, this verb can do a lot of things, but today, we're keeping it simple and focusing only on the present tense. It's all about building that strong foundation first. All right, now let's get into the fun part, actually building some simple positive sentences. This is how you'll tell the world what you or other people actually have. And you know what? This first part is beautifully simple. For pronouns like I, you, we, and they, the verb doesn't change at all. It's just have. I have a car. You have 2 sisters. We have a beautiful house. They have many grandchildren. See? It's simple, it's direct, and it's really easy to remember. Easy enough, right? But here comes the one little twist you've got to remember. What happens when we're talking about just one person or thing? You know, a he, a she, or an it? This is where a small but absolutely crucial rule changes everything. And this just lays it all out perfectly, doesn't it? On the left, you've got all the pronouns that stick with the simple word have. But over on the right, for our third-person singular pronouns, he, she, and it, the verb changes. It gets that S and becomes has. And here we see exactly how that works in a sentence. He has many problems. She has a lot of shoes. So, the big takeaway for positive sentences is this. The verb only changes to has when your subject is he, she, or it. That's the one and only exception. All right, so you've totally mastered positive statements. But what about when you want to say what you don't have? Well, in English, we can't just throw in the word not. We need a little helper verb to come in and do the job for us. And that little helper is called an auxiliary verb. For the present tense, it's the verb do. So the formula is pretty easy. You take your subject, add do not, or what you'll hear way more often, the contraction don't, and then you just add the base verb have. So I have a car becomes I don't have a car. So what happens with he, she, and it? Well, the same idea applies, but our helper verb takes on that special third-person rule for us. The auxiliary do becomes does, so we use does not, or the super common doesn't. The auxiliary is doing all the special work now. Now this brings us to a super common mistake. It's really tempting to keep that has form and say something like, he doesn't has a car. I get it, it seems logical. But in English, that's like doing a double conjugation, and it's actually incorrect. And this slide shows you the secret. Think of the auxiliary verb does like a superhero doing all the heavy lifting. It's already carrying that third-person S for us. And because it's doing that, our main verb, have, can just relax and go back to its original base form. So here's the #1 thing to remember. In negative sentences, the main verb is always have, no matter what the pronoun is. He doesn't have, she doesn't have, I don't have. The helper verb might change, but have always stays the same. Awesome! So we can make positive statements, we can make negative statements. The next logical step, of course, is learning how to ask questions. And the structure for questions is pretty much just a little switcheroo. We start with our trusty auxiliary verb, do or does, then comes the subject, then our base verb have, and then just the rest of the sentence. That auxiliary always leads the way in a simple question. This side-by-side view makes it crystal clear. We use do for questions with I, you, we, and they, and we use does for questions with he, she, and it. And look again, the main verb is always have. The auxiliary is still doing all that hard work for us. And here's the really cool part, how we answer. We just use the same auxiliary verb from the question to give our short, simple answers. Do you have? Yes, I do. Or no, I don't. Does she have? Yes, she does. Or no, she doesn't. You literally just echo the auxiliary. It's so efficient and sounds completely natural. Okay, you've learned the rules for positive statements, negative sentences, and questions. Now comes the most important part of all, putting it into practice so you can really lock in that knowledge.
Here's a quick exercise for you. On the screen, you'll see a table with some sentences that need to be completed. I really want you to pause right here, write down your answers, and try to apply all the rules we've just covered. Honestly, it's the best way to make it stick.
Okay, you got your answers written down? You ready? Don't be nervous. Let's check your work together and see how you did. All right, here are the first answers. For the affirmative sentences, I have, but she has. There's that third person rule in action. And for the negatives, we don't have and he doesn't have. Did you notice how the verb is have in both negative sentences? That's because the auxiliary is doing the work. How'd you do?
And now for the questions. Do they have is answered with yes they do or no they don't. And does he have is answered with yes he does or no he doesn't. See that pattern? You always echo the auxiliary from the question.
And there you have it. That's the complete guide to using to have in the present tense. You now have all the rules for positive statements, negative ones, and questions. So I'll leave you with this final thought. Now that you have the rule, what will you say you have? Start practicing. Thanks for joining me today.